Hello everyone, welcome to YMB Movie Talk from your movie blog. My name is Shazam, and I'm very happy that you've decided to join me today for I guess it's the 10th ever episode of my podcast here on YouTube. Now, you're probably wondering if you remember that I used to do a podcast back in the day. When I say back in the day, probably about 2 years ago. So this was like pre-pandemic and everything. And I was starting to get a little bit of traction, and then for some reason I just seemed to have stopped. So I think I probably need to explain that point before I start getting into the main topic that I want to discuss today, which is the Zack Snyder Justice League film, which has just recently been released. I just kind of feel like I want to explain a few little bits because I want this to continue, and I feel that if I want this to continue, I need to be open and honest and discuss basically the reason why I've not done a podcast in nearly 2 years. So basically, let's start from the top. My name is Simon. If you don't know, it's a podcast basically where we come talk about films, talk about different topics that are going on in the world of movie news. I will eventually get back to doing live podcasts. I just want to kind of refresh myself a little bit. It's been so long since I've sat in front of a camera and recorded myself, talking about films or talking about anything really. It's been a long time, and a lot's happened in my life then, so I kind of feel like I just want to get slowly back into it, and then once I get a bit more comfortable and get my flow back a little bit, then I'll start doing more live stuff. But at the moment it's just kind of, let's do pre-recorded stuff first, see how that goes, and then if you guys like it, then I'll start doing live stuff again. Okay, basically, let's start from the top as to why it's took me 2 years to do my 10th episode of my podcast. To those of you who watched back in the day, I think my last ever episode was talking about like It Chapter 2. So this was, the end of 2019. So I think the end of 2019, let's say November time, I think, October, November, like Halloween time. That was my last episode of my podcast that I did. That was like a consistent basis. That was the last ever podcast that I did. And the reasons for that vary greatly. The first thing I do want to kind of talk about is the reason why I stopped in the first place. The reason why I stopped in the first place was it was just work. That was the main reason why I stopped. My intention was to restart it again in the new year, but then other things happened, which I'll get to in a bit, which is kind of why I had to stop doing the podcast full time at all. I'll get to that in a bit. But the main reason why I stopped was work, because I basically work in retail, and Christmas time and retail just do not mix. It's busy, it takes up a lot of your time. That, as well as everything that, you have to have a personal life too, seeing your family, seeing your friends. I have a fiance and everything, so for me it was very time consuming. And I didn't have the time to commit to doing a podcast. That's just the honest truth. I probably wasn't as motivated to do it, because I feel like if I was as motivated to do it, then I would have probably pulled through it a little bit. But I in that frame time, I just wasn't there, and I was more committed to doing work and trying to earn as much money as I could for Christmas. So that was the main reason why I stopped in between October, well, let's say end of October, start of January. Then my plan was in January to begin doing the podcast again. Start off in about mid-January time, start off doing the podcast again, talking about films. This would have been like early 2020. This would have been like January 2020. I would have started doing the podcast again. There you go. It's all going great. All right, let me put my light back on. That happened. Right, let's put you back up there. Okay, this just started well, hasn't it? 2 years away, and it's already going wrong. Yeah, I'm basically using my phone as a light source because I haven't got my light set up yet, which I'll discuss the reason for that in a bit. Let's just stay there. I hope. Okay, let's hope that stays. Well, we'll wait and see. Yeah. Okay, where was I? Yeah. Okay, January 2020. So then January 2020 comes along, and then I get probably the best news I've ever had in my life, I'd say. I found out me and my fiance were gonna have a baby. We got caught in January after Christmas, and we was gonna have a baby, which scared the living shit out of me, honestly. But it was really exciting, and it was one of the best feelings I've ever had. And then I'd say 2 weeks later, we found out that we was gonna that we'd miscarried the baby, and that kind of just ruined all the plans to restart the podcast. That was a time frame which, for me, was just one of the worst parts of my life. Honestly, and I don't want this to be like overly sentimental. I'll get into the movie talk thing in a bit, but I just wanted to kind of explain the reasons for why I haven't done a podcast for so long. And I just think it's good to be a bit honest, and also gets you guys to know me a little bit better if you don't know me personally. So yeah, we lost the baby, miscarriage, say 3-4 weeks into. It was very early days, very very early days, and we just were very unlucky. So that went on. Worst time of my life. Just eating like a fucker. Because honestly, this is just what it is. When I'm down, depressed, whatever it might be, I just eat like a fat fuck. It's always been a comfort thing for me, and this is why I've always kind of had problems with my weight and stuff. So, and I just ate like a fat pig, to be honest. And then I found out. God, when was it? It must have been early March. I'm guessing it was early March. We got caught again, and this time it was different because I hadn't recovered mentally yet from losing the previous one. So that was kind of, that was tough, to say the least. And it took me a few months to get into that. Then on top of that, there was COVID, which was just a kick in the balls for everyone. Not only me, like people have had worse experiences than me with COVID, definitely. But in all honesty, COVID just was horrible. Being my work, I was on furlough for months. I wasn't allowed to go to any appointments for the baby scans or anything. I wasn't allowed to go to any appointments. I had very limited involvement when it come to things like that. When it involved me going to the hospital for anything for the baby, I wasn't allowed to go. So a lot of the time it was, and my missus was still at work as well because she works in care. So she spent a lot of the time at work, and I was just kind of left on my own in the house. And it was just terrible. Worst time in my life by far. One of the things that got me through it was, again, films. So this is where the whole passion thing with movies come in, because films were really the only thing that kind of kept me going in a way. And then, long story short, work opens again in September, I think. And then my baby is born in October. So I'm now a dad now, which is weird because the last time I did this podcast, I wasn't a dad, and now I am a dad. So it's really strange. And yeah, he's born. His name's Harry, and he's a lovely little guy. He's the best baby in the world. And I thought that this was it. This is my life getting better. And then we had the news that he'd been diagnosed with a condition called cystic fibrosis. To those of you who don't know what CF is, It's basically a condition that's genetic. It's like a genetic condition where two parents, if they carry this defect gene, there's like a 25% chance that their child ends up having cystic fibrosis. And the condition is basically mainly attacks the lungs. It's a buildup of mucus on the lungs, like thick, sticky mucus. You know, like when we cough and we bring up phlegm. It's basically that, but it's more in quantity and it's thicker, and basically it brings down their lung function. It also affects like their digestive system, their salt content in their body, all of that. It's a very kind of broad condition, and that meant, and one of the big things about that was a limited life expectancy. So we was told by the nurses that he would have a projected lifespan of about 40 years old. So that was that was tough. Yeah, but that was hard, and it took me a while to kind of get used to that. And then all the responsibilities that came with that, with his medication, his physiotherapy, taking him to the doctors all the time, getting to know his CF team, that was a lot. And then on top of that, we got evicted from our property. Nothing that was our fault or anything like that. Basically, our landlord was Portuguese. He, I think, lost his job overseas due to COVID, and then obviously had to come back to this country. So he had to come move back down here. We give 6 months to find somewhere new to live. So that was tough. So we had like a forced house move on top of that, as well as having a baby with this condition we had no clue about, called, with CF. So all this kind of happened in the space of, so there was miscarriage, new baby, COVID, getting evicted, having a baby, finding out he's got CF. There was all these different things that happened in the space of, a 10-month period, and that was just like terrible. And then obviously we went on the second lockdown in around October as well. So, or was it November? No, it wasn't. The second lockdown was like January, wasn't it? Was it January? I think it was January. So then it was just, it was one of these things where it was almost like every month we was getting some more bad news, and it was just the worst thing ever. I don't want to kind of get too down about this and bring the mood down. We'll have a laugh later when we start talking about Justice League in a good way. I do like the film, but I'll explain more why later. But yeah, it was just a very, very tough part of my life, and we just getting hit with all these things. And during this time, obviously due to COVID, it was struggling for money. So this is where the podcast thing comes back in again. So I had to sell basically all of my podcast equipment that I had. I had to sell all of it because we had bills to pay and things needed paying for. So I had to sell a lot of my podcast equipment. This included my £80 podcast setup. This included my £250 4K webcam. This included, a lot of the things that I had. I had to sell, and obviously if you know that I used to do gaming videos as well on YouTube, I had to sell all my gaming stuff. I had to sell my 4K camera that I used to use to record my videos. I had to sell all of that, so I had to sell a lot of the things that I had, and of course with having the baby as well, you have to kind of prioritize. And at the time, it was more important for me to, prioritize my family and things. So all this stuff that I spent a lot of time building up, I had to kind of sell, so I couldn't do the podcast anymore. I didn't want to do a podcast if the equipment wasn't right. I didn't want to do it if I didn't have good audio, especially because if, like at the moment I'm using the webcam on my laptop. But eventually I will get a good webcam. But at the moment, it's just using the one from my laptop, and even that it's decent quality, but it's not kind of what I had before. But you just kind of have to roll with it, and I have rebought the same podcast setup that I had before. I've rebought the same one. It's not the exact same one, but it's the same make, because it's the one I'm familiar with, and I really like the quality of it as well for a good price too. So I've rebought that, so I'm starting to rebuy all my podcast stuff again. So I thought now he's been, we've moved house now. We're in our new flat. It's a lot cheaper, but it's also a lot better than what we was in before. In our previous house, we were spending £500 a month in a place that was freezing cold all the time. There was draft coming through the windows, mold growing on the walls. No double glazing, no radiator in the bedroom, poor insulation, poor flooring, no insulation, no underlaying the carpet. I mean, it was just, it wasn't very suitable for a family, let alone a couple. So it was a blessing in disguise, and the place we're in now is a lot better, a lot warmer. We're still currently in the process of moving. This is why I'm currently doing this in my baby's room, and on our mattress, and they've got all boxes and all of our stuff in here. So we're still in the process of moving, but I really wanted to restart my podcast again. There's loads of stuff that I want to talk about. I mean, I've missed like a year and a half of films, so of talking about films. So there's a lot to catch up on, and I felt that now would be a good time to kind of get back into that. I was a bit nervous if I can still do this. Just let me know in the comments, isn't it? Like, just let me know if you enjoy this. Sorry about the kind of depressing first 20 minutes, but I kind of feel like it's important to give context to things and explain kind of why I didn't do a podcast for nearly 2 years. Because I was doing them very consistently. If those of you remember, I did about 9 episodes. And that was 9 episodes over the space of probably about 2.5, 3 months. So it was like literally one podcast a week, 1 or 2 podcasts a week for the space of 3 months, 2-3 months. So it was very consistent for that period of time. I love doing it. This is what I've always wanted to do. I used to do this back when I was like 14, 15, like the original YMB Movie Talk. And if people remember that, then that fair play, because that's a long time ago. That was when I used to live back at my mum's, and I had my little laptop from school, and I had this little £8 condenser microphone, and I used to, do my podcast on there, and that was a long time ago. So if those of you remember that, then, fair play to you. But this is what I've always wanted to do, apart from being a film director. But this is kind of my passion, is talking about films. I tried to do like a football podcast and stuff, and even though I love football and I have a lot to say about football and other things as well, I don't like, my only interests aren't just football and films, but film is really the one big passion in my life that always kind of gets me through things, and I have a deep passion for it. I have a decent knowledge of it as well, so I kind of feel like I can bring something to the film space online, whether it be on audio podcast form on like a SoundCloud, or if it's like video form like it would be on YouTube, then I do feel like I can kind of give something to it. So with that being said, and all the down depressing crap out of the way, let's get on to talking about what I actually want to talk about on this podcast, and that is films. And this is going to be basically a special talking about the recently released Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder Cut, if you kind of followed that movement and really helped to get that go. The Snyder Cut is basically the original version of what Zack Snyder wanted to do with Justice League, the Justice League film that came out a few years ago. I think it was November in 2017. I've not got that in front of me, but I kind of feel that's when it come out. Was around November 2017. So Justice League should have been the Avengers of DC. It should have been this massive box office success. It should have been this huge film, and it just flopped. It flopped. I mean, if you're talking about big flops in film history, I don't really know you can't talk about Justice League. This film had a very messy production for various different reasons. Whether it be studio interference or tragedies or whatever it might be, this film was just cursed, and it just didn't have the best production cycle. So there's a few things I kind of want to discuss before I start getting into the review of the film, just to give context to this Zack Snyder Cut Justice League. Basically, how all this came about was, I'd say early 2017. Production was going forward for Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then Zack Snyder unfortunately lost his daughter. She committed like suicide, and she obviously passed away. So that combined with Warner Brothers wanting to go in a different direction with Justice League, wanted it to be a bit shorter than what Zack wanted it to be a bit more comedic, have a lighter tone than what Zack wanted from what Zack provided from his previous films. Obviously, Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, very dark films, not a lot of humour, very kind of downbeat and very very serious in tone. And I think it's very clear what Warner Brothers wanted was to get a more light-hearted Avengers-style film as far as tone. So they bring in Joss Whedon to recut and reshoot certain scenes, and basically change the film. The film ended up being a complete mess. It was a film that felt like a broken jigsaw. It was two very different directors' visions. I don't really understand what they was thinking. I mean, this is a very good example of how bad Warner Brothers was run back then. Obviously, it's under different leadership now, but when it was run by Kevin Sujihara, it was just a complete mess. You can tell. I don't know why you would take a film that would probably be 95% done with a director like Zack Snyder and then give it to someone like Joss Whedon. You can't find two different directors. Zack's a very visual, complex director in a way. He likes big visual storytelling. He likes kind of thought-provoking stories. Whedon is more comedic, banterous, light-hearted, more kind of warm family entertainment type of director. And the two tones just didn't clash at all. They didn't mix well at all. The film looked terrible. There was really poor colour correction. That was the one thing I remember most. One of the things I remember most from the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League. The visuals was just awful. Terrible CGI. Steppenwolf looked like a joke. Obviously, there was all that drama with Henry Cavill's mustache, the CGI tash that they had to basically edit over because he was contractually obligated to keep it for Mission Impossible Fallout. He couldn't shave it during the reshoots, so they had to basically CGI the tash off and replace it with like a fake upper lip, and it just looked terrible. I mean, it was a joke. I remember sitting in the cinemas watching it and just thinking, this is shocking. I mean, it just doesn't look good at all, and it wasn't a good look for WB as well. To let that pass was really a demonstration of the situation they was in at the time, I think. So yeah, basically it was just a complete mess from top to bottom. Very poor continuity errors. The film didn't flow well at all story-wise. It felt like two different stories jumbled together. The editing was terrible. The music, I mean, I like Danny Elfman, but he hasn't done a good soundtrack for a film for a very long time. And I kind of feel like it was going through the motions a little bit in Justice League. He relied too much on nostalgia. I don't think the music really fit the film well. And it just didn't flow with the tone, I think. That being said, it was released, massive box office flop. And to kind of, cut a long story short, this changed the whole direction of the DCEU. DC kind of focused more on producing independent, like short, kind of independently, like films. They didn't want to do the big group team up big continuity extended universe films. They kind of wanted to do their own little things with each individual characters. We had the Aquaman film, which wasn't really tied into anything else, really. Shazam was very much its own thing, except from a little bit at the end with the Superman cameo, which wasn't even Henry Cavill, by the way. It was like a stand-in, so that was that was loose even at that. There was like Suicide Squad, which come before, but even then, like, that felt very different in tone as well. Like, they don't really fit well together, these DC films, tonally anyway. The only two that do, I'd say, would be Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel. Those are the only two films that feel like they are in the same universe. Suicide Squad was a serious film that was re-edited to try and be funny, similar to Justice League in a way. The studio interference mixing with the director's vision, it just doesn't work, man. Every studio has the entitlement to go in and kind of order the director around a little bit, but you have to give leeway to the director. You hire a director, you hire screenwriters, you hire these actors, you've got to let them do their job. Because if you look through the history of this genre in film, whenever studios interfere, it goes wrong. Every single time. You look at Spider-Man 3 with the kind of forcing in of Venom, and that not really worked. That's not what Sam Raimi wanted, and look how that turned out. You look at The Amazing Spider-Man 2, forcing in all these villains, trying to force these sequels without focusing on a story, and that ended that franchise altogether. You look at Josh Trank's Fantastic Four, a film that, again, was kind of took away from the director's hands, given to someone else, and just completely messed up the vision of the director. Felt like it was made by two different people, and it was, but it really did feel like it. So this genre doesn't really work well to studio interference. It's such a niche genre in that way. It's you need a director with vision, with a certain vision, and you have to stick with that vision. So that's why Justice League didn't work. It was just a jumbled mess from start to finish. Now, away from the whole, the Sweden version of Justice League, after this, obviously, it changed the DCEU. They went more towards single stories, focusing more on almost like Elseworld stories, like with the Joker, Shazam in a way, kind of very loosely tied to the DCEU. And then we had all this stuff with Ben Affleck's Batman film. He had such a poor time on Justice League, and his personal life was kind of going down the shithole as well. So he was basically done as Batman. Matt Reeves took over the directing job of that film, wanted to go in a different direction, wanted to focus on a younger Batman. So, Ben Affleck was kind of out there, and they wanted to, and then eventually they decided not to make a DCEU film. They wanted to do their own thing. So the DCEU basically ended in a way with Justice League. It's not really the DCEU anymore, really. It's very loose canon, but they are their own stories in a way. Shazam is its own story. Wonder Woman 84 is its own story. Birds of Prey is its own story. They're all kind of their own story, really, with very, very loose ties towards the bigger universe. And during all this time, there has been this movement online, mainly from Twitter, mainly from like Instagram, Reddit, places like this, that have been clamouring for the Snyder Cut. Now, the Snyder Cut for the longest time was almost like this urban myth of the film sphere on YouTube. Everyone was clamouring for it. There was a lot of people saying it did exist. A lot of people saying it didn't exist. A lot of people saying it would never exist. It would never happen. It doesn't make sense for it to happen. A lot of people saying there's value in doing this. The fans want it. The director wants it. Let's see what Zack Snyder wanted to do with Justice League. Let's see what he would have done if it weren't for the studio and the tragedy with his family. Let's see what his vision would have been with Justice League. And I was one of those people. I was kind of in the middle, in a way. I was always one of these people that thought, I don't think this is going to ever happen. I always thought there was definitely a full cut of this film from Zack Snyder. Whether it's, I never thought it was 100% done. I always thought it probably was about 95% with kind of visual effects needed doing. I never thought it went that far, but I definitely felt there was a decent cut of this film that Zack had that was kind of sitting there and had potential. Like, and even though I wasn't the biggest fan of Man of Steel, like I admit it, but Man of Steel is very mixed for me. I like the first act and half of the second act, but then when it went into the third act, it just went away for me. It was too much. It was too much. It went away from this kind of introspective story about this man trying to find his place in the world and where does he fit in. Should he interfere in problems? Should he expose himself to the world and show who he is? It went from that to this big, dumb action film, and it just didn't fit. I don't think that it didn't fit together well. Batman vs Superman was a film that, it was a good Batman film stuck in a film that was trying to force the idea of Justice League down our throat. It was a good Batman film stuck in that. It was a terrible Superman film. I mean, the character of Superman was butchered in that film, in my opinion. They just showed him to be this whiny mess of a character. And I love Henry Cavill as Superman. I think he's a very good Superman. So it's not even that. It's not even like I don't like Henry Cavill as Superman. I do like Henry Cavill as Superman. I just didn't like the direction they took him in that film. But I've always said Batman vs Superman is a good Batman film stuck in a forced Justice League film. The little cameos on that, a lot story-wise, that there's a lot of moments in that film that just don't make sense. And for someone like me who's a bit nitpicky and a bit of a, it stands out to me. And I wouldn't even say it's nitpicky. I'd say it's very kind of lazy storytelling, to be honest. When you're watching a film and the only way they can introduce these other characters is to have like little video files that are shared from, like, it just doesn't make sense. I'm not going to go on a rant on Batman vs Superman. There's a lot in that film I just do not like. But there's a lot of things in that film I do like. So Zack Snyder's one of those directors for me. When he hits hard. When Zack Snyder is on, there's not many better in that area of filmmaking. Like, as far as big visual storytelling, there's not many that can compare with Zack Snyder in that sense. On the flip side, when he doesn't hit, it's awful. Like, he really is one of these very chalk and cheese directors. So it wasn't like I was blind to the fact that Zack Snyder's Justice League is going to be this mesmerizing, like, game-changing film that's going to be amazing and be excellent and have no problems, and it's going to completely trash Whedon's version. I never thought it would be like that. I always kind of was very skeptical on the idea of Zack Snyder's Justice League, just based on the fact of history. I mean, sorry, I'm going to stretch out here. I'm lying on my mattress and my legs are killing me. Yeah, so basically the idea of that never really hit me that well. I always thought it was definitely, people was overhyping what this film could be and not really looking at what this film probably will be, which is another Zack Snyder overblown, like, DC film. That's what I thought it would be. So all this Snyder cut phenomenon happens. The world goes crazy, wanting this. I've never seen a movement like it in the film sphere. As far as wanting a film to happen, I've never seen anything like it. For like a director's cut as well. Like, my favourite director's cut of any superhero film is the Daredevil one. I think the director's cut completely changes that film. I think the director cut saves that film. It takes it from like a 4 to like a 7 for me, 7, 8. I love the director's cut of Daredevil, which also stars Ben Affleck, so that's quite ironic. But I'd say the Zack Snyder Justice League director's cut is the best Zack Snyder film I've ever seen. Now, I'm going to explain why. Because obviously I've kind of said the negative things about Zack Snyder as far as his DC films go, and those negatives I think are still present in Justice League, in his version of Justice League. I'm not going to be blind and say this film's perfect. It's not perfect. There's a lot in this film. There's a lot of problems in this film. It's not perfect. But for me, it's the best DCEU film. So, despite it not being perfect, it's a very good film. Was it worth the 4 years of debates I've had with people online? Maybe not. I don't know. I'd have to watch it a few more times, because so far I've watched it twice, and there's a lot in this film to absorb. I mean, Christ me, it's 4 hours long. There's a lot to in this film to absorb. So there's a lot to get through with this film. But in traditional Zack Snyder fashion, when he hits, and he hit a lot in this film. There's a lot of good things I need to talk about when it comes to Justice League. Sorry, I just needed a cup of tea. Do you like my Harry Potter mug? It's cool, isn't it? So, yeah, Zack Snyder's Justice League. The positives, I would say, that compared to the Whedon version, the main thing for me is the characters. They feel like completely different characters. In Whedon's version, they felt like, especially Batman, the main ones for me would be like the character of Batman and the character of Steppenwolf. They just seem like completely different characters, not just visually, but in their personality. Batman is he's a lot more light-hearted than he was in Batman vs Superman. He does make a few more jokes, but it's not this kind of forced down your throat, really irritating humour that Whedon did for his version when he reshot those scenes, and he was trying to almost make Bruce Wayne Tony Stark, and they're completely different characters. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, especially when what's been set up with this character so far in this universe. It was such a drastic difference, and you can see Ben Affleck just did not give a shit. You can see in his face, in Whedon's version, you can see he just hated doing this. And the continuity between scenes. One scene he's like ripped and chiseled, and the next scene he looks like he's just popped out of a pub. And you notice these things. These things are not hard to notice, guys. Continuity is one of the biggest things in films. And if you can't get continuity right, it's not going to be pleasing to the eye, and it's going to interrupt you. Thankfully, Snyder decided to not use anything that Whedon had shot. So we don't get none of this awkward Batman humour. We don't get this awkward version of Flash where he's just doing these stupid jokes. We don't get this Steppenwolf who looks like a fucking moron and constantly moaning about his mother. We actually get a villain who's got a bit of a backstory and a villain we can invest ourselves into. Instead of trying to reborn his mother than he did. I don't know what they were going for in that original version, but in this version he basically is like this disgraced general, this army general who's been banished to the galaxies in a way to bring Darkseid, who's this overarching Thanos style villain. Steppenwolf is very much the Loki of this film, and Darkseid's like the Thanos, the one pulling the strings. Steppenwolf's basically been, he has to get all these worlds for Darkseid. And all Steppenwolf wants to do is kind of earn the respect of Darkseid and go back home. That's all he wants to do. He just wants to get this done and go home. And he doesn't want to, he wants to be a good soldier. He wants to prove his worth and return home. And it's a lot more interesting than just random villain number 20, who shoots down from the sky and demands to talk about his mother all the time. Like, it's a bit more investing as a villain. He's not perfect. Like, he still has some really cheesy lines, but he's a lot more effective as a villain in this film. He's a lot more intimidating, a lot more of a presence there. The redesign works as well. He looks better. The CGI is way better. The CGI is a lot better as well for this version of Steppenwolf. Like I said, the biggest change for me is Cyborg. Cyborg is the biggest change out of any character, more than Batman, more than Steppenwolf. The character of Cyborg is probably the best character in the entire film, which I wasn't expecting. I'd always heard that, like, Snyder was saying that Cyborg was like the heart of the story of Justice League, and I didn't kind of believe it in a way, because the main focus has always been kind of Batman and Superman. So I always thought they'd focus more on Batman and he'd be the central key to the story. And it's really not that way. The main character in this film is Batman in a way. As far as scenes go, he probably has the most scenes. But as far as the moving part of the story, like the emotional heart of the story, is Cyborg. You get to see more of his backstory with his mother and his willingness to be unselfish and help people. The scene with the woman and her kid, when he basically gives loads of money to this woman to help her out, this struggling woman. Just randomly did it. He hacked into like the banks and like gave her like $100,000. The scenes of him playing football and not seeing his dad, and it very much builds up this tension, this tense relationship between him and his father. This resentment for him being made this way, the resentment for him kind of being almost feeling like his father didn't care about him when he was younger and being pushed aside for his father's career. I think that was very interesting. And also, he was just really well performed by Ray Fisher. Ray Fisher was fantastic in this film. He's really good. He had a lot of presence. Very good comedically as well. So had some very funny lines. Good delivery. Played the dramatic parts really well. You felt his pain. You felt his struggle during the film. And he was really the one. When he was on screen, I was hooked. I was drawn in and hooked into his story 100%. He was fantastic in this film. Really, really good. And it's a shame we'll probably never get to see him again, which, with the whole problems with him at the moment, with Walter Hamada, the current president of Warner Brothers, you can kind of, hopefully they'll be able to resolve the differences, whatever's happened, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. Sorry, I just really needed a drink. I forgot how much you talk and your mouth gets so dry. But yeah, hopefully he'll come back for a film in the future. He's been rumoured to come back in Flash, in Ezra Miller's Flash. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But I hope he does, because there's a lot more to expand on this character. Also, there's the action is a lot more better. Is a lot better. The characters actually work together. They feel more like a team in this film. I think in the other film they almost felt like separate entities in a way. Like they didn't really feel. That was the biggest thing. I always felt like, why are these people together? Why are they working as a team? They have no chemistry together. Like, they just feel like they've been forced together because the script needs them to be. There was no kind of natural desire to have these characters interact with each other. I always felt like, why was Aquaman even caring to be there? And it's explored more in this film. And I think that's the joy of this film being on streaming services rather than in cinemas, and having this 4-hour cut, is that you get all the backstory with the characters, you get all the explanations for who these people are, you understand their motivations for wanting to be part of this team and wanting to help, and and kind of having this responsibility in a way to stop what's going on with the villains, and really having a place to, having a reason to be there. Where in the other film, I felt that was one of the main issues, was that I just felt that these characters didn't feel like they'd naturally be working together. I felt like it was very forced in the original version, where this film, every character has motivation. Every character has a motivation for being there, and that's one of the main things for me. Every character has a solid motivation. Wonder Woman has motivation because of what's happened with her, her Themyscira. With them getting attacked by Steppenwolf, she has motivation. She understands about the history of Darkseid as well, so that gives her more of a strong link for her to kind of educate the other characters on what's going on in a way. Even it can be a little bit over expository sometimes, but most of the time it comes off quite natural. Cyborg's there because he wants to kind of they accept him. I think it's that acceptance that he hasn't had for a long time, and they don't just see a cyborg; they see someone who can help, and this very powerful machine and person, but someone who is very vulnerable and needs people around him for support, and needs that, especially when his father dies. He needs that support. So they all have motivation for being there. Even Flash, like, he has a motivation. He had the most motivation, I guess, in the last film, just based on the fact that he was like, I need friends. I don't have any, like, I need people kind of in my life in a way. I struggle to make friends. So I feel like that character, even in the original version, was more accepting, I guess. His storyline was the most acceptable as far as being there, apart from Batman, obviously, because he was the one trying to pull this team together out of guilt in a way. But I felt the film really, really, really built the characters well, and explored the characters' motivations and their flaws, but also built them well as a team. Like, they all felt like they should be together. I believe that these people actually like each other, and they wanted to work together, and they have these little moments, like the scene with Aquaman and Wonder Woman when Cyborg and Flash are digging Superman's grave. You can see there's history there between these two people who traditionally shouldn't be friends. Like, their civilizations don't mix well with each other, but they have similarities there with that. The saying that they have, it's the same saying, they learnt it off each other. So you have this history there. It's this built-in mythology that's been built really well by Snyder, and I think that's the one thing he's done well with his DC films, is that he makes this world feel very rich. He makes this almost like a mythology. It very much feels like there's a lot of history in this world that we've not really got to explore yet. And he really does a good job exploring that in his films, and I'll give him that. And it's very much present here, probably more present than ever before. It's very, very present here. Now, all that being said, the better visual effects, the better characters, the better villain, the music was great as well. Tom Holkenberg's score was fantastic. Some of the tracks are absolutely brilliant. Beautiful music from Junkie XL in this film, it has to be said. So, the cinematography was really good as well. Cinematography was fantastic. I was a bit put off with the 4:3 aspect ratio, I have to say, but you do get used to it. I mean, I would have preferred to see this film in the more traditional aspect ratio, but you do get used to it. It's a bit jarring in the first hour, but once your eyes get used to it, you just kind of, you don't even realise it, to be honest. You don't even recognise that what you're seeing. You just kind of go with it. And that's, that works in a way, because you get to see more of the characters on a top to bottom scale, because a lot of the characters fly upwards and have a lot of upward movement, so it captures that movement better, and I think that's kind of what Snyder was going for. And maybe it had something to do with just being a bit more artsy and being a bit more different and standing out a little bit more. Maybe that was also part of it. And even though I will say the strongest aspect of this film probably would be the runtime, as far as developing the characters and building the story and building the world, it's also not the weakest part of the film, but it's definitely one of the biggest drawbacks of the film. And the reason for that is just this film feels so long. And it is so long. It's very long. It's 4 hours. It's nearly 4 hours. It's a long film. It's a long haul to get through. And I feel that this film didn't need to be 4 hours long. It just didn't need to be 4 hours long. And I get it, because that was Zack's vision. That's what he wanted to do, and we've all been asking for his vision of Justice League, and he's given us his vision of Justice League, and that's what we've got. But come on, 4 hours. I mean, there's a lot of filler in this film. There's so much filler, and I mean, you could have at least chopped, I'd say, half an hour to 45 minutes. If you really wanted this big, long, epic story, you could have got away with 3 hours 15. Maybe 3 hours at a push. I think 3 hours to 3 hours 15, maybe 3 hours 30, maybe. If you really wanted to push it that far, I'd give you that. But 4 hours is hard, because there's a lot of scenes in this film that just feel very unnecessary. One of the biggest ones is the Flash scene where he saves Iris West, the girl at the dog, when he goes for that interview, and the truck driver with the sandwich. That scene honestly could have been cut. There was no need for that scene to be in there. I mean, it was a demonstration of Flash's powers, I guess, and it kind of set up his future film with the character of Iris West. But this scene did not need to be in this film. It's a pointless scene. It makes the Flash look like a creep. Like, genuinely, I was watching it, and when he starts, like, running over to her and he starts, like, stroking her face, I was like, he's never met this woman before, ever. It's the first time they've met each other, and he's, like, stroking her face and caressing her face, and it's just so uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable to watch. No matter how cool it is to see Flash and, do his thing with the powers and stuff, it's cool. It's a cool visual thing, but just contextually and story-wise, narrative-wise, this added nothing to the film. It added nothing to the film. A good introduction to the Flash would have just simply been Batman going to meet him at the bunker that he was in. That could have worked as an introduction for the Flash, or even the scene with his dad. There's a lot of scenes that could have been a good introductory scene to the Flash. I don't know why that scene had to be in there. It's long, it's overdrawn, it's creepy, it's weird. Even the editing in this film some of the editing, especially in that scene, the editing in that scene's bizarre. It's so bizarre. I mean, there's the scene, the part in that scene where the truck driver drops the sandwich. And he drops the sandwich. This is the middle of the day, busy road. He drops his sandwich on the floor of his truck while he's eating it. He reaches down, and it must have been for 30 seconds to a minute. In the film, in the film, it must have been 30 seconds to a minute of him trying to get this sandwich and just carrying on driving down the road. It makes no sense. Who does that? No one does that. No driver in the world, I don't care who they are, the worst driver in the world doesn't do that. They don't keep their head down for 30 seconds to a minute trying to find a sandwich driving down a busy road. It doesn't make sense. And okay, people might say it's nitpicking, but to me that's a massive editing issue. You could have cut that down. Definitely you could have got an editor in there and chopped that scene down, and it could have been a lot more, it could have flowed a lot better. And I think that's one of the big problems with this film. It's just so long, and it needed to be edited down. A lot of scenes in this film just do not need to be there. A lot of the scenes are just filler. A lot of the scenes are just there to I guess expand the characters, maybe. I don't know if that's what Zack was going for, but you already have a lot going there with these characters anyway. You already have a lot going with these characters anyway. I mean, there's literally 2 scenes of Steppenwolf going to visit Darkseid's henchman in his like base in Russia, basically telling him that he's found the mother boxes. 2 separate scenes of the same conversation. It's one of those scenes could have been cut. That's 5 minutes of the film there you could have cut, and it wouldn't have made a difference. Like, there's a lot of scenes like that which feel that they're just repetitive. We're going through the motions. Come on, like, you know, we get it. Like, we get what's going on. We get, you know, let's get to the point now. Like, and I kind of feel that that's one of the biggest issues with Justice League, is no matter how much I like the storytelling that Zack Snyder's gone for in this film, it's too much. It's too much. I don't think any film needs to be 4 hours long. If you can't cut a film down and still tell your story within maximum 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, if you can't do that, then something's wrong. I mean, he's always said that he saw Justice League as like a 2-part thing. So I don't know whether it was his initial intention to split this into 2 films. You know, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that was his intention, to split it off into 2 films. But even then, there's still a lot of filler. Like, you know, if he did want to do that, then a lot of it would have just been set up anyway. You know, almost similar to what the Deathly Hallows was. How that was just one big story and they split it up into 2 films. At least you get that kind of split in the middle. Where with Justice League, you don't have that. You don't have that split. It is one joint up film, and it's a lot of filler in there that doesn't need to be there. You could have cut maybe even an hour off this film, and I think it would have flown a lot better. A lot of the scenes take a lot of time to get to one another. There's a lot of plodding, a lot of people standing around talking about things that don't need to be talked about. I think all of the scenes with Superman's mom could have been cut. Like, all of them. All the Martian Manhunter stuff could have been cut. That didn't need to be there. The epilogue scene at the end, even that probably didn't need to be there. I know that was shot after. But if you was going to have that, at least have it like after the credits. Like, don't have it in the epilogue. Like, have it at the end of the credits so it's like almost like a teaser. And cut, even that scene could have been cut down a lot. To be honest, even that scene could have been cut down a lot. You know, I don't think there was a lot of things in this film that I don't think needed to be there. The Martian Manhunter stuff didn't need to be there. The stuff with Superman's mom didn't need to be there. The scene with the Flash didn't need to be there. A lot of the scenes with Wonder Woman. This is another thing. I still don't like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I know I'm in the minority. I know I am. I know a lot of people love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I just don't think she's a very good actress. I'm sorry. She has the look. 100% she has the look of Wonder Woman. But I don't believe her in this role. I'm sorry. I just don't think she's a very good actress. I think her line delivery is so awkward. And, like, she really feels like she just hasn't got a very natural delivery with these lines. She's not, whether that's Zack's direction of her, I don't, but then again, she was the same in a solo film, so I'm not going to blame Zack Snyder for that. I am going to blame Gal Gadot for that. I just don't think she's a very good actress. I'm sorry, I just don't think she is. I've never seen Gal Gadot in anything which I thought she was good. And that's not any different for Justice League. Like, a story was good. Story was good. I don't like the Wonder Woman music as well. I can't stand that fucking music, and it plays so much in this film, guys. I'm not that fucking. If anyone watched Spy Kids back in the day, it sounds like that Spy Kids theme, and it just reminds me of Spy Kids. And I love Spy Kids, but it's that like it's so annoying, and it plays so many times in this film. It's ridiculous how many times that scene plays. I can't stand that. I can't stand that theme. It does my head in, honestly. I can't stand Gal Gadot as one. I just don't think she's very good at. She's not a good actress, guys. I'm sorry. Her line delivery is just so awkward, and she does like a lot of what I call eyebrow acting. She does eyebrow acting all the time, and it's she's trying to seem like cool and like epic, and she's trying to give this sense of like, I'm a badass woman, I'm a badass Amazon, and it just feels so awkward. It feels so awkward. That scene where it was in the original cut, but it's been like extended now with extra shots and kind of contextualizing the story a bit more. That scene of her in the stopping those English mobsters from blowing up that bank or whatever it was. That scene in itself is all the reasons why I don't like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. That scene encapsulates everything in my eyes. Really awkward line delivery. A lot of this, like, she does that with her wrist and then she's like doing this with her eyes. She's like doing that and then she like pulls away and she's like, she does that. And honestly, she does that so much in this film and it fucking drives me insane. I know I might seem like an absolute nutter with this, but honestly, it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy when she does this. Her line delivery is just, I can't get over how terrible her lines are. And I'm not saying it's because of her accent. It's not an accent thing. It's her facial expressions. It's her tone of voice. It's the nonchalant, almost like, I will just say the lines because it's part of my script. I just can't stand it, man. And she's such a good character. She's written really well, shot really well. Can't stand her action sequences. I don't like this sped up slow-mo thing that Zack Snyder does. I've never liked it. I never will. But even so, I don't like her in this role. And I know I'm going on a bit of a rant here about Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, but it is part of Justice League, so I'm allowed to. And she's just in it so much. And the scenes which she's in, she just doesn't hold the presence of a lot of other, like, and this isn't just like a female actress thing. That's not what this is. Like, I don't want people to think like, oh, she doesn't have she doesn't have the premise because she's a woman and all the. That's not what it is. So if people are thinking that, fuck off. Quite frankly, I love a good female protagonist. One of my favourite characters of all time is Hermione Granger in Harry Potter. Probably one of my favourite female characters ever. I love Lara Croft. I love the bride from Kill Bill. There's loads of characters, man. I'm not. That's not what this is. I even love the Charlie's Angels films, guys. McGee's Charlie's Angels film, and I love Cameron Diaz and Drew Barrymore and Lucy Liu in that. So it's not the female protagonist thing. It's not because she doesn't have a presence. It's just because I just think she's fucking awful. She's so bad in everything I've ever seen her do as Wonder Woman. In Batman vs Superman, in her own films, both of them, she's awful, man. She's so bad. And even in Justice League, she's terrible. So that's one of the things I wish I could change about this film, is just to get someone else in as Wonder Woman, man. I remember when she was cast, like, when would this have been? 2014, 2015 maybe, she was cast as Wonder Woman. And I remember she was cast and I was like, is that the chick, that shit actress from Fast and Furious? She's Wonder Woman. I was like, oh God, it's so bad. Even then I was like, come on, this is the best you can come up with. Even like, I mean, I remember Jamie Alexander was really rumoured she was strongly rumoured to be Wonder Woman. And I was like, that would have been so good because she's a good actress. She's a really good actress. But Gal Gadot just isn't. So I'm sorry, I'll never like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I'll never like her in almost anything I see her in. I just don't think she's a very good actress. And she does not work in this film. That being said, she's written well. There's nothing like that. It's not it's more the actress's performance. And you can only work with what you're given. So I'm not going to give Snyder too much hassle with that, because even Patty Jenkins couldn't get a good performance out of her, and she got one of the best performances out of an actress in history with Charlize Theron in Monster. So I'm not gonna give. Patty Jenkins knows how to direct a good, knows how to direct people. So I'm not even gonna say it's her fault either. This is Gal. I don't think she's a very good actress. So away from that, I also still don't like Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Sorry. Again, this is another thing, and it just seems like I'm banging on about like the female. It's not that. I just don't think Zack Snyder's good when it comes to female like character. I don't think he's good at it. I don't think he knows how to convey female emotions well. Say what you want, but men and women are very different. We're very, very different. Men are usually more confrontational and a bit more physical. Women are a lot more caring and calming, and I don't think he understands female characteristics well. He doesn't understand how to realistically bring a female character to life in his films, and this is one of the things with Amy Adams as Lois Lane. I don't see that character. She has such poor chemistry with Henry Cavill. I don't get it, and she's written like she's this savior of, like she's the key to this story, and I understand it because I'm guessing what he was going for was that she would have Kal-El's kid, and then he'd probably die or something. That's what would be the key for him to lose his mind and fight, the rest of the Justice League. So I get that in that sense. I just don't think she has the presence to be the centerpiece of a massive story like that. I don't think she's written well enough. I don't think she's developed well enough. I don't think her and Cavill have very good chemistry at all. Even from back in Man of Steel, I don't think, even in then, I don't think she was very good. And this is not, this is not a hating women thing. I just don't think Zack Snyder is very good at conveying strong female characters. I think he just thinks strong female characters mean, a strong female character means fighting people and being confrontational and argumentative. That's not what a strong female character is. A strong female character is someone who can be smart, who can outthink people. It's not just about all the obviously there's the physical aspect as well. I'm not saying like women should just be like soft, fluffy sponges. Like they have to have a veracity there as well, because that's part of what women are as well. So he doesn't even get that part down though. So I just don't think, just in that sense, I don't think he's very good at that. But maybe with a different actress it could have worked. Maybe if there was an actress who had better chemistry with Cavill, because that's like the centerpiece of this whole story. The centerpiece of this whole universe has been set around the relationship between Superman and Lois Lane. That's the motivation. I don't know what that was. That's the motivation for Superman. That's the whole. That's the motivation for Clark Kent becoming Superman and embracing who he is, and like really feeling comfortable in who he is because of his relationship with Lois Lane. Even in this film, when he gets brought back to life, he's going on this rampage fighting the Justice League. Great scene, by the way. Still love that scene. Fantastic scene. They go through they go through this fight, and she's the one to like calm him down, and even in that scene, I don't feel that chemistry there. I don't believe what I'm seeing, and if I don't believe what I'm seeing, it takes me out of the film a little bit. So that's still one of the big problems for me. It's been a problem since Man of Steel. I just don't think Amy Adams is good in this role. She's a good actress. Very good actress. Just don't think she's good in this part, personally. Other things that I think are problems, the visual effects are very hit and miss as well. Some of the visual effects are really good. Some of the visual effects are really, really good. Some of them, though, are very, very choppy. Like, you can tell it's been shot on a green screen. Let me just say that. It doesn't... The real things in a shot aren't blended well into their environments. That's, like, a really big issue. I don't know what it is, you know. I don't know if it's the lighting or, like, the lack of clarity on the visual. I don't know what it is. Like, specifically. I don't know what the problem is, but there's definitely a lack of, like, realism in what I'm seeing. And maybe Zack was not going for something realistic, but for a story he's trying to... Oh, my phone's getting notifications. Hang on. Sorry. 2 seconds, guys. Okay, yeah, so basically, with, I completely forgot where I was. Sorry, I had to message my fiancée back. There's a lot of scenes in this film that I just don't think work. Coming back to it, basically, I've completely forgot where I was, guys. I'm so sorry about that. So let's get back onto... I'm guessing I was talking about... That was it. It was Amy Adams, wasn't it? Amy Adams, Lois Lane. Yeah, I was talking about the scene when they were fighting the Justice League, wasn't he? Superman was fighting the Justice League. If she's not in this film, I do think it's better. Or at least if they had a different actress. I do think it would have been a better film. It wasn't about Amy Adams. I'd already talked about that. It was about talking about the visual effects. That was it. Okay, talk about the visual effects. Yeah, it's either the lighting or the quality of the effects. It's one of the two. Because it's so clear that they're on a green screen. Like, I don't think we understand how important it is to have that kind of environment be blended into what you're seeing with the real life aspects of a shot. Like, characters, like fully CGI characters. Okay, sometimes that can be hard because, especially if a full CGI character's trying to convey facial expressions and try and convey emotion, sometimes that can come off a little bit fake. But the environments, like, some of the environments in this film, that opening scene on Themyscira, honestly, I was watching it thinking, okay, like, is this what I'm watching? And it's not helped with the slow motion either. It's not helped with this constant slow motion. This constant breaking up of the style, this constant breaking up of a flow of a scene to have this this shot that Zack thinks is so necessary to have in slow motion. It just breaks up the flow of a scene. It breaks up the tension, and it ruins a lot of action scenes for me. It definitely ruins a lot of action scenes, especially on that battle on Themyscira. It's the visual effects and this constant slow motion. It just ruins a lot of the scene for me. No matter how good the concept is of the scene, no matter how good that is and how well it's been designed and choreographed and how well that's been done, it's those things that take you out. It's those things that take you out. When you're watching something and you realise what you're watching isn't real, it kind of... obviously, you know it's not real, but you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit when you go into films like this, and it takes you out of that as soon as you see a scene that you're like, oh, this is poor. This is really poor. The chroma key, the green screen, terrible. Lighting, awful. And those things are things that really stick out for me about Justice League. But overall, look, I'm not going to say this film's bad. It's a very good film. I actually kind of like it. I just feel like this film could have been so much better if it was just cut down a lot. I think if you would have cut out 30 to 40 minutes from this film, cut out the unnecessary scenes with Flash and Martha Kent, cut those scenes out. Kind of focus more on focus more on the character moments rather than these overblown action sequences. If you would have even cut the action sequences down a lot, like a lot of the action scenes go on for too long. I just don't think this film needed to be 4 hours, guys. I think that's the big thing for me. It's good in a way because it gives you the opportunity to really get to know these characters and expand on the world, expand on the universe, and really get more of an idea of what you're watching and really kind of get invested in that world, which I was. Like, I was invested in this world from the start of the film. I was a lot more invested than I was in the previous film. You know, I just don't think it's the film that people are saying it is. Like, some people are saying this film's a masterpiece. I've seen that word being thrown around a lot, that this film's like this masterpiece. I'm sorry. Like, I respect your opinion. All film's subjective. Like, there's no objective way to judge a film. It's so up to your own personal taste. But for me, I can't see how I mean, it's the best DCEU film. That's 100%. I wasn't a big fan of Wonder Woman either, so, and that's one that people always go to. But I wasn't a big fan of Wonder Woman. But this is probably the best DCEU film for me. You thinking about it? Yeah, I think it probably is the best DCEU film. Even though I do think it would probably get trumped by James Gunn's Suicide Squad, which looks fantastic. It looks so good. I can't wait for that. Even though I think it will be bettered by that, I do think this is probably the best DCU film. Maybe, I don't know actually. Maybe Shazam. I don't know. Maybe I'd say this is the best Zack Snyder DC film. I think, in all fairness, I think this is the best Zack Snyder film since 300, to be honest. I probably would say that. This is the best Zack Snyder film since 300, which was 14 years ago. So, you know, like I said, when he hits, but when he misses. Like, this isn't like Sucker Punch. Like, it's not that. And it's not Batman vs Superman level of terrible. But I wouldn't say it's great either. I think people are very much getting sucked into the hype of this, and when it dies down and people can kind of see it for what it is, and notice the flaws in it a little bit more, maybe then people will probably realise that, okay, this isn't everything that we thought it probably would be. But I don't know what people was expecting. Like, Zack Snyder's not this incredible director. He's not a Chris Nolan or a Steven Spielberg or, you know, a Denis Villeneuve, or, like, he's not one of those guys, man. He's not like this fantastic director who just hits films. He just hits every time he does a film. He's not that guy, man. He's a guy a bit like Michael Bay in that sense. There's a lot of comparisons there. He's a Michael Bay in the sense that, like, he has a Bad Boys like style of film, and then he has a Transformers 2. That's very. This is Zack Snyder's, to what Bad Boys 2 is for Michael Bay. This Justice League is for Zack Snyder. That's the best way to explain it. This is the best film he's done in a very long time. And the one thing I will say is, more than anything, this gets me very excited. I want this world to continue. That's something I'll definitely say. I really want this world to continue, and I'm hoping it does. Like, even the little bit at the end with Jared Leto's Joker, it just sets up like this future, this relationship with him and Ben Affleck's Batman so well, and I want to know what their story is together, what happened with Robin and their relationship together. I want to know what goes on, and it's this like dangling carrot that I don't think we'll ever be able to reach. I hope we do. I mean, come on. Like, there's weirder things that go on in the film world, guys. Like, Jamie Foxx is back as Electro. Like, Alfred Molina is playing Dr. Octopus again. Like, come on. Like, the fans have basically forced a studio to release a director's cut of a film. Like, say that would have happened 20 years ago? No chance. That never have happened. So we're in this weird space right now. And I think if people demand it, like, I want to see what goes on more in this world. I want to see what happens. I'm really excited. I hope we do get a Justice League 2. Or, you know, I hope we get that Ben Affleck Batman film, even though I don't think it will happen. I hope we do get these things. I hope I mean, I know Ben Affleck's coming back for the Flash film. I know that's happening. But I want him. All I've wanted is a Ben Affleck Batman. That's all I want, man. Can someone just make this happen? I just want a Ben Affleck Batman film so badly. He's just such a good Batman. When he's on as Batman, he's fantastic. Like, I don't know if I'd say he's the best Batman of all time. I don't think he's had the opportunity to be the best Batman of all time, even though I would say he has the potential to be. I think if he had a film and he knocked it out the park, like he really hit, like, you know, with a Batman film, whether he was the director or not, like, there's a lot of potential there. I just don't know if it's ever going to happen. You know, I just don't. I really want a Cyborg film. Like, imagine if you would have asked me coming out the 2017 Justice League film done by Joss Whedon, if who would you want to see a Cyborg film after this? I'd be like, fuck no. I don't want to see a Cyborg film. I don't want to see another Wonder Woman. I don't want to see another Flash. And even though I don't want to see another Wonder Woman film for the rest of my life, as while Gal Gadot is in this role, I definitely want to see where this world goes. I want them to expand on this future thing where Superman turns like bad. I want them to expand on this. I want more of Darkseid. You know, there's a lot of potential there waiting to be expanded on. I just don't know if we're ever going to see it. But, you know, we've been able to get this film. We've been able to get the film that we never thought would happen. I never did anyway. I never thought this would happen. So that's a testament to how strong the film fan community is when we band together. You know, this is a very good demonstration of that. And I do think it'll happen. I think there's I don't want to. If I had to like a percentage, I'd say there's like a 20% chance we get more Zack Snyder Justice League DCEU films. Whether it's another Justice League or another Henry Cavill Superman, I do think there is going to be more. I really do. I just think the reaction from this, even though I don't think it's the masterpiece everyone else says it is, like, I'd give it like a solid like 7.5 out of 10. You know, I give it a very solid 7.5 out of 10. Maybe a 7, but a 7.5 out of 10 just for how good it is compared to the other one. And I'd say the other one's like a solid 4, like 3-4 out of 10. So this is a massive upgrade on that film. Like, I'll never watch that other film. To me, this is canon. To me, this is the real Justice League. That theatrically released Justice League never happened. So I'll never watch that again. If I do watch it again, it'll be out of curiosity, but I will never watch it properly again. This is the real Justice League, and I'd love for someone to just cut this down, like do like a fan edit, and just cut this down, cut all the, you know, unnecessary stuff out, cut all that out, and, you know, have like a really cohesive Justice League, really sharp story, flows well, no babble. Like, if they did that, I'd love that. And I really hope we get that Justice League too, but I just don't know if it'll ever happen. I think it's more unlikely than likely, but I've always said that the Snyder Cut was more unlikely than likely, and we're here, so who knows what'll happen. But yeah, guys, that'll be it for today. Thank you for watching or listening if you listen to this on SoundCloud. Thank you very much. Like I said, I will start live streaming my podcasts very soon. We still are in the process of moving, so I don't want to do live streams just yet. It's still quite early in the process of us moving. We've still got boxes everywhere. We haven't even got carpeting yet. We're still very early in the process. And obviously I'm always kind of busy with like my family and stuff. So it's going to be hard for me to like guarantee a live stream every week. But I'll definitely get to that point at some point. But for now, I'll just do like pre-recorded stuff, whether it's talking about movie topics, talking about different types of films, or whatever the case may be. I'll definitely stick to this format for a while until we can get back on doing live streams. I want to get me a better camera first as well, and then I'll start doing live streams. But that'll definitely something that'll happen in the next few months. But what do you guys think of Justice League though? Because for me, I mean, like I said, I'll probably give like a 7.5 out of 10. The positives being the characters, the world building, the music, the cinematography, the passion that you can feel coming from the actors and the director. You can feel it coming through the screen. But the big things for me are still the overuse of slow motion. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, like the film being too long and dragging out too much and having too many unnecessary scenes that didn't need to be there. Being a bit too overblown and being a bit too much. I think it definitely could have been cut down. It would have been a better film for me. I think there is a masterpiece in here, 100%. Although people calling it a masterpiece, there's a masterpiece in this film. I just don't think it's the film we got. But there is definitely a masterpiece. If someone edited this, if there was a re-edit, like a shorter version, there is a masterpiece there, 100%. There's definitely a lot of potential in this film. But I just think the finished product could have been a bit more sharper, could have been a bit more smoother, could have been refined a little bit more as far as the editing goes and the length. But, I did enjoy it, and I'll definitely watch it again. I mean, this is, like I said, it's the best DCEU film for me. It's Zack Snyder's best film for a long time, maybe his best film ever. Thinking about it, I don't know. 300 was a long time ago, and it was such a thing of its time. But I would probably say that does trump it. Maybe Watchmen as well. I liked Watchmen, to be honest. I forgot about Watchmen. Maybe Watchmen's a bit better. I don't know though. I'd have to go back and watch Watchmen. I haven't watched it in a long time. But at the moment, off the top of my head, it's one of the best films. It's definitely the best film he's done since Watchmen. 100%, it's the best film he's done. So yeah, guys, if you haven't seen Zack Snyder's Justice League yet, I know if you're in America, it's on HBO Max. If you're in England, where I am, it's on Now TV, or it's showing on Sky Cinema. So if you've got either of those, watch it, support the film, and try and see if you're a fan of it and you liked what you saw. Definitely, let's see if we can get Snyder back, and let's see if we can get this world continued, and because I do think he's got a grasp of this world now, Zack, and I want to see this story completed. I want to see where he goes, and I want to see what else. I want to see this arc. I want to see this arc fulfilled for him. I think especially what happened with his family and the tragedy with his family. I think it'd be a nice kind of all-rounded journey for him. He has come out and said he doesn't want to do any more Justice League films, but I'm sure there's a part of him that will feel unsatisfied, I think, if he doesn't get this story finished, because there's a lot of people clamouring for it as well. So I think it'll definitely happen one day, but we'll probably just have to wait and see. But yeah, guys, that'll be it for today. My name's been Simon, so thank you for watching. If you liked the podcast, please subscribe if you're watching it on YouTube. Follow me on SoundCloud if you're watching on there. Give it a like, give it a share. Start a discussion in the comments. Let's see what you guys think about Justice League. Share between yourselves. And I'll be back. Hopefully, I'll try and at least do one piece of content a week, just to keep consistency and keep getting back into the flow of it. I mean, this is the first podcast I've done in like 2 years, so it's been a long time, but I've definitely enjoyed it. It's been a fantastic experience. Thank you for coming to my podcast today and listening to me compliment and complain about Justice League. Not that there's other bigger things in the world going on, right? But there's me moaning about a film, so that just kind of tells you who I am. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you very, very soon. See you later.